Wrestling legend Sabu has passed away at the age of 60, just 3 weeks after stepping into the ring for what would become his final match in his long, storied, and brutal career. The announcement came from All Elite Wrestling, AEW, one of the most prominent professional wrestling promotions in the world today, and it sent shockwaves through the wrestling community and beyond. For fans, fellow wrestlers, and industry veterans alike, the news felt both surreal and heartbreakingly final. A man who seemed indestructible inside the ring, despite years of injuries, blood loss, and physical punishment, had taken his last breath. AEW shared the tragic news across their official platforms, expressing their deep appreciation for the unforgettable high-risk moments he delivered over decades. Sabu gave everything he had to the wrestling world. Their statement read, "Every bump, every scar, every leap from the ropes told the story of a man fully committed to his craft." The company extended its heartfelt sympathies to his family, friends, and the countless fans who considered him a hero, an icon, and in many cases, a legend that embodied the very soul of hardcore wrestling. Notably, AEW did not reveal the cause of death, which has led to speculation, but also a general sense of solemn respect from the wrestling world. Many chose instead to focus on his legacy and the indelible mark he left on the sport rather than the circumstances of his passing. That restraint is reflective of the profound respect the wrestling community has always had for Sabu, not only as a performer, but as a person who paid the price of pain to deliver moments that fans would talk about for decades. Born Terry Michael Brunk in 1964, Sabu was practically destined to step into the squared circle. Wrestling was in his blood, his very DNA shaped by the echoes of an earlier generation. He was trained by none other than his uncle, the legendary Edward "The Sheik" Farhat, one of the most notorious and feared wrestlers of the mid-20th century. The Sheik's influence on the world of wrestling was immense, pioneering what would become known as hardcore wrestling, a style drenched in violence, unpredictability, and raw emotion. Growing up under the tutelage of such a dominant and theatrical figure, Sabu absorbed not just the physical techniques of wrestling, but the psychology, the art of storytelling, and the spiritual discipline it took to commit one's body to a life of performance, pain, and showmanship. Sabu's journey into professional wrestling began in earnest in the mid-1980s, when he was in his early 20s. While his early matches may not have immediately predicted the legend he would become, there was always something in his eyes, a kind of quiet, dangerous intensity that would later become his signature. He didn't need to speak much, and he didn't rely on elaborate promos. He let his actions in the ring tell the story. And what a story it became! His major break came in 1991 in Japan, where he began wrestling for Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, FMW, a promotion known for its extreme violence and high-stakes matches. In FMW, Sabu found a home that suited his. Daredevil style, he threw his body into danger without hesitation, enduring matches laced with barbed wire, glass, fire, and other instruments of destruction. It was there he gained the gruesome scars on his arms and torso, battle wounds that became his brand. Some whispered that he'd inflicted them on himself for shock value, but those closest to him, and anyone who'd seen even one of his brutal matches, knew the truth. Those scars were earned through sheer grit and pain, forged in steel cages and on broken tables in the middle of rings packed with howling fans. Sabu returned to the United States a more hardened, unpredictable figure, now recognized not just as a wild card, but as a legitimate wrestling innovator. His name soon became synonymous with the American hardcore wrestling scene. Throughout the 1990s, Sabu cemented his legacy in the ranks of Extreme Championship Wrestling, ECW, the Philadelphia-based promotion that would forever change the face of wrestling. ECW was raw, unfiltered, and rebellious, and Sabu fit into that universe like a missing puzzle piece. Fans remember him for his wild dives, brutal chair shots, and an almost supernatural willingness to throw himself into harm's way. One minute, he would be leaping from the top rope onto an opponent through a table, and the next he'd be clutching a torn bicep trying to tape it back together mid-match just so he could finish the bout. In ECW, there was no room for the faint of heart, and Sabu was their warrior monk, equal parts savage and saint. It wasn't long before World Championship Wrestling, WCW, and eventually World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE, took notice. While His stints in those larger promotions were shorter and more restricted by corporate structures and TV limitations. Sabu's presence was undeniable. From 2006 to 2007, during his time in WWE's ECW revival, he introduced a new generation of fans to his legacy. Though WWE's version of ECW was heavily toned down from the original, Sabu still managed to shine, pulling off awe-inspiring spots that reminded everyone why he was a living legend of the ring. In the 2010s, even as his body aged and his pain accumulated, Sabu never completely left the business. He appeared at independent shows, wrestling conventions, and special events. For die-hard fans, getting a photo with him or hearing his stories in person was a pilgrimage, an encounter with one of wrestling's last true outlaws. He was not polished, not politically correct, and certainly not easy to categorize. But that was part of his mystique. He was one of the final, flickering flames of an era that seemed almost mythical in comparison to modern wrestling. On April 18th of this year, Sabu wrestled in what turned out to be his final match, a retirement Rumble. At 60 years old, he climbed into the ring once more to say goodbye in the only way he knew how, by fighting. Those who witnessed the match say it was emotional, electrifying, and full of nostalgia. He wasn't the same young daredevil from the 90s, but the spirit was intact. Every movement, every gesture spoke of love, for wrestling, for the fans, for the culture that raised him. Beyond the ring, Sabu also experienced deep personal loss. During the 2010s, he was in a committed relationship with fellow wrestler and fitness model Melissa Coates. Their partnership was rooted in mutual respect and admiration, both having endured the physical and emotional demands of the wrestling industry. Tragically, Melissa passed away in 2021 due to complications from COVID-19 at the age of 52. Her death deeply affected Sabu. Those who knew him said he was never quite the same after losing her. The pain of watching a loved one fade away mirrored the pain he had so often inflicted on himself in the ring. Yet, he carried that burden quietly, never seeking pity, only understanding. The wrestling world has lost many over the years. Too many, too young. But the death of Sabu feels different. It's the end of an era. It's the final bell ringing for a man who sacrificed his body, his blood, and arguably his longevity for the sake of performance, spectacle, and adrenaline. He wasn't the most conventional wrestler, and he certainly didn't follow a textbook career path. But that's what made him iconic. In a world of scripts, Sabu was a living improvisation, a ballet of chaos performed on ropes and steel chairs. Fans around the globe have begun sharing their memories, filling social media with photos, tribute videos, and emotional messages. Wrestlers from multiple generations, from the ECW originals to current AEW stars, have expressed how much he meant to them. Many credit him with inspiring their style or giving them the courage to go all in, no matter the risk. His matches have become case studies in what it means to live fearlessly, to believe in something so much that you're willing to hurt for it. Sabu's life wasn't perfect. He had his share of controversies, his battles with addiction, and periods of being misunderstood by both fans and promoters. But even in his darkest hours, there was always a glimmer of the warrior inside. That flickering flame never truly dimmed until the very end. Wrestling took much from him, his health, his peace, sometimes even his dignity. But he gave it willingly, as though he had made a pact long ago with the wrestling gods, to serve until he could serve no more. Now that he's gone, what remains? His more than legacy. It's a legend, stitched together through pain and glory, blood and applause. It's every gasp from a stunned crowd as he crashed through a table. It's every moment he stood tall in the ring, despite the bruises and broken bones. It's the silence he carried in his eyes, that quiet intensity that didn't need words. That was Sabu. That will always be Sabu. May he finally rest in peace, far from the roar of the crowd, the flash of the lights, and the violence of the ring. But even in that peace, somewhere in the back of our minds, we'll always hear it. That sound of a steel chair unfolding, of fans chanting his name, of ropes shaking from one more insane dive. Because in the world of wrestling, Sabu will never truly die. He will live forever in highlight reels, in memories, and in the hearts of those who understood what it meant to put everything on the line for love of the game. R.I.P. Sabu. A legend, a lunatic, a master of the mayhem, and above all, a true original.